I used to believe that once you found the right man, the past would stop knocking on your door, but I was wrong. When I married Daniel, I wasn't just marrying him. I was inheriting the shadow of someone he once loved. Her name was Vanessa, a name that lingered in the air longer than it should have, like perfume from a stranger's coat that somehow ends up on yours. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination. After all, everyone has a past, right? But it didn't take long for her presence to start bleeding into our everyday lives. Her name would pop up casually during dinners with his parents. His mom would reminisce about how sweet Vanessa used to be, or how Vanessa always made the best apple pie. And I'd just sit there, smiling through clenched teeth, sipping wine that suddenly tasted bitter. Daniel never seemed to notice, or maybe he chose not to. He loved me, I knew that. But love doesn't erase old memories, it just builds new ones on top of them. And sometimes the old ones start to crack through the surface. It wasn't just the mentions at family gatherings. It was the way her birthday was still marked on his calendar. The way he hesitated when deleting old photos. The way he once said my perfume reminded him of something, then paused, almost guilty, before brushing it off. I didn't want to be that woman, the insecure, jealous type. So I kept silent. I told myself that silence was strength, that I would rise above it. But silence can also be an invitation, an open door for people to walk all over you. The first real crack came at our anniversary dinner. We were sitting in our favorite restaurant, the one with dim lighting and white linen napkins folded into roses. Daniel was distracted, checking his phone more than usual. I leaned over, trying to joke. "You waiting on a love confession?" He smiled sheepishly, locking the screen. But not before I caught a glimpse of her name. Vanessa. I laughed it off, but something shifted inside me. A quiet snap. Later that night, while he was in the shower, I picked up his phone. I told myself it was just curiosity, that I had no intention of going through it, but I did. I opened the messages, and there it was. Nothing overtly romantic, nothing explicitly wrong, but intimate, familiar. Jokes with inside references I didn't understand. Compliments wrapped in casual texts like, "You always knew how to make people laugh," or "Wish we still had those movie nights." I closed the phone and just stood there for a while in the dark of our living room, letting the weight of it settle on me. Was he cheating? No, not physically, but emotionally. Emotion is sometimes the more dangerous betrayal. I didn't confront him that night. I just climbed into bed, turned my back to him, and stared at the wall until morning. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was heartbroken. And from that heartbreak came something else, not rage, not jealousy, strategy. Vanessa wasn't just a ghost from his past. She was real, alive, interacting, testing boundaries. And I had let her. But no more. If she wanted to see what kind of woman I was, I'd show her. I wouldn't yell, I wouldn't cry, I'd invite her to dinner. Because sometimes the best way to deal with a ghost is to open the door and stare it in the face. The hardest part wasn't writing the message, it was pressing send. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. The words were polite, neutral, even friendly. "Hi, Vanessa. I know this might be unexpected, but I'd love to have you over for dinner sometime soon. I think it would be good for us to talk, just us girls." No accusations, no tension, just an open invitation. And when I finally tapped send, I felt like I had pulled the pin from a grenade and calmly placed it in the center of our living room. Now all I had to do was wait. Vanessa replied within minutes. "Sure. That sounds interesting." That smiley face made my skin crawl. I spent the next few days in a haze of preparation. Not just for the dinner, but for the performance. I needed to be perfect. Calm, warm, unshakable. I didn't want to look like the insecure wife. I wanted to look like the woman who had nothing to fear. The woman who had already won. I bought fresh flowers, cleaned the house until it smelled like lemon and lavender, picked out a dress that wasn't too much boisson, but definitely not too little. Something that said, "This is my home and I'm not going anywhere." Daniel still didn't know. I wasn't ready to tell him. Not until I knew what her game was. When the night came, I lit candles, played soft jazz, Set the table for 3, but deep down, I knew this was a table for 2. Daniel was just background, since a shared detail in a much deeper confrontation. He had kissed me goodbye that morning with his usual distracted affection, not knowing that while he was at work, I was orchestrating something quiet and dangerous. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes early. Of course she did. She always had perfect timing. She stepped through the door like she belonged in it. Her hair was styled just messy enough to look effortless. Her outfit was casual but curated. Expensive jeans, silk blouse, delicate necklace. I smiled. "Vanessa, welcome. So glad you could make it." She returned the smile with equal sweetness. "Thank you for inviting me. This is unexpected." Her eyes scanned the space, lingering on the framed photos on the walls. Daniel and me in Paris. Daniel and me laughing on the beach. Her gaze sharpened for half a second. "I noticed." She recovered quickly. "Beautiful place." "Thanks. We built this life together." I let the words hang in the air, sweetly coated in civility and a sharp edge. We moved into the kitchen where the scent of roasted garlic and rosemary filled the room. She complimented the food, the decor, even my earrings. It was all so civil, so terribly fake. And yet, beneath every compliment was a test, a jab wrapped in velvet. Over dinner, she began dropping breadcrumbs of old memories. "Remember when we all used to go to that jazz bar on Fridays?" she asked, laughing lightly. Daniel smiled, a flicker of nostalgia passing through his eyes. I reached for his hand across the table and gave it a gentle squeeze. "Oh, we have our Friday spot now too. Sushi and bad reality TV." I smiled at her, wide and warm. Let her know she wasn't in that memory anymore. Then came the slip, the one moment I'd been waiting for. She turned to Daniel and said, "You've always had a thing for sensitive women. You were always the fixer." She said it like a joke, but I heard the blade inside it. Daniel chuckled, uncomfortable. I tilted my head. "Is that what you think I am, Vanessa? Something to be fixed?" She froze for a beat, just a second, then recovered. "Not at all. I'm sure you're perfect for him." There it was, the real tone, the hint of resentment, the need to reclaim something that no longer belonged to her. I kept my smile. "He and I are very different. He doesn't need to fix me. He respects me." My voice didn't rise. I didn't flinch. And in that moment, I watched something change in her face. Not defeat, but discomfort. The realization that this wasn't the woman she thought I was. I wasn't soft. I wasn't weak. I was steel wrapped in satin. After dessert, I walked her to the door. She thanked me, told me I was very gracious. I watched her get into her car, and only when the headlights disappeared did I let my shoulders drop. Daniel came home an hour later, cheerful and oblivious. I didn't mention the dinner. Not yet. He kissed me, told me I smelled like vanilla and firewood. I smiled. Maybe I did. Maybe I smelled like victory. But this wasn't over. That night wasn't closure. It was pasquier. It was reconnaissance. Because sometimes you don't defeat a threat by pushing it away. You invite it in, study it, and plan your next move. The dinner should have ended it. But it didn't. It only confirmed what I had started to suspect. Vanessa wasn't here by coincidence. She was circling, watching, testing the edges of our life like a wolf pressing its paw to a locked door. A few days after the dinner, Daniel mentioned her in passing. Vanessa texted, "She said you were really nice the other night. She appreciated the invite." I smiled and nodded, playing my part. "That's good. I wanted to be civil." But inside, I was screaming. Because Vanessa wasn't texting me. She was texting him. Still. Her silence toward me was deliberate, calculated. She wanted to keep her presence invisible to me, as if she were trying to slip back into our lives like smoke under a door. And Daniel, bless him, still thought everything was harmless. I started noticing changes, small but sharp. Daniel became distant in these subtle, elusive ways. He was still loving, still kind, but slower to reach for me, slower to laugh, more distracted. He took longer showers, started bringing his phone with him everywhere. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was spiraling, that I was becoming the jealous wife, the thing Vanessa wanted me to be. But deep down, I knew the difference between paranoia and instinct. And this wasn't paranoia, it was survival. One night, I heard him laughing in the hallway, that deep, relaxed laugh he used to give me. I peeked around the corner. He was on the phone. I didn't say anything. I just watched the way he leaned against the wall, smiling into the screen. And then I saw it. The way his face changed when he noticed me. The drop in expression. The sudden gotta go before the call ended. He looked at me and said, "Just a friend." I nodded. Sure. But my heart was already writing a different story. I tried to confront it gently. Over wine one night, I asked, "Do you ever think about her?" He blinked. "Who?" "Vanessa." He shook his head quickly. "Not like that." And maybe he believed himself. Maybe he truly didn't see the danger. Maybe he was just flattered that she still wanted him, that she still looked at him like he was the man she regretted letting go. And maybe, somewhere deep inside, he wanted to be wanted. But I wasn't going to sit in the shadows while my marriage slowly burned from quiet embers. So I made a decision. I went to see her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't pretty. I waited until Daniel left for work, then drove across town to her apartment. My hands were shaking. My thoughts were a storm. I didn't know what I was going to say. I only knew I needed her to see me again. Not the calm wife at dinner. The woman who would not be erased. She opened the door, surprised but not speechless. "Oh, hi, Daixi. We need to talk," I said. No smile, no pretense. She stepped aside, let me in like she'd been expecting this. Her apartment was minimal and cold, perfectly curated. No signs of life, just style. She offered coffee. I declined. I sat down and looked her dead in the eye. "What are you doing, Vanessa?" She raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Texting him, calling him, slipping little memories into conversation. You want something. I need to know what." She leaned back, arms crossed. "You think I'm trying to steal your husband?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You really don't get it, do you? I had him. I left. And now I get to haunt the version of him you get. The one I made softer. The one I trained to be the man you think you married." My blood went cold. She continued, "You're just the woman who benefits from my work. I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm just reminding him what we were." I stood. "Whatever you think you're doing, it ends now." She shrugged. "Then maybe you should talk to him about why he keeps replying." I left without another word. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even tell Daniel. I just sat in the bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror. And I made a promise I wouldn't let her win. But I also wouldn't lose him by becoming a woman I didn't recognize. This wasn't just a love triangle. This was psychological warfare, and I was done playing defense. The air between us changed after that. Not because of what I said to Vanessa, but because I changed. I was no longer waiting for signs. I was no longer searching for proof in shadows. I was watching, wide awake, fully present. And Daniel could feel it. He began to notice my silence, the way I would pause before responding, the way I looked at him too long or not at all. He started asking small questions. "Are you okay? Everything good?" And I always smiled. Of course. But there was a quiet steel behind it now, a quiet knowing. I started rebuilding myself, quietly, secretly. I went to therapy, told Daniel it was for stress, and he didn't ask more. I began journaling again. Rediscovered old playlists, old poems, old pieces of the woman I had been before I became someone's wife. But none of that meant I'd given up. I just stopped chasing. And that's when things shifted. One evening, Daniel came home from work looking pale and unsure. He stood in the doorway, holding his phone like it burned. I looked up from the couch calmly. He sat beside me without saying a word. Finally, he whispered, "She sent me something." I said nothing. He opened the phone and showed me. It was a picture. Old. Him and Vanessa on a trip I knew nothing about. He was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Young, stupid, free. She said it was just a memory, he added, eyes fixed on the floor. She wanted to know if I remembered. My chest tightened, but I didn't speak. He needed to, and he did. I thought it didn't mean anything. But then I realized I was waiting for her messages. Checking my phone, I didn't reply, not lately, but I wanted to. I'm sorry. And there it was. Not a betrayal in action, but one in intention. I could have screamed, could have cried, could have thrown the phone or packed a bag, but instead, I looked at him and asked the only thing that mattered. Do you still love me? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Do you want this marriage? He nodded, voice cracking. More than anything. Then you need to understand something, I said, leaning closer. You've let her haunt this house long enough. Either she leaves, or I do. And I meant it. He wiped his face and said, I'll block her. Delete the messages. Everything. But I shook my head. No, that's not enough. I want you to tell her, directly, that this isn't just about you anymore, that this is hurting your wife, and that if she keeps pushing, she's not the past anymore. She's the problem. He agreed. Nervously, but he agreed. And the next night, he made the call, on speaker so I could hear. Vanessa picked up. Her voice was syrupy. Daniel, I didn't expect to hear from you. He took a breath. I need you to stop. Stop what? Texting me, sending pictures, reaching out. This isn't fair. Not to me, and not to her. There was a pause, then coolly. You didn't seem to mind a few weeks ago. I was wrong, he said firmly. But I'm not wrong now. Please don't contact me again. And he ended the call. Just like that. He looked at me and I saw something break. But not between us. It was a thread, thin and brittle, snapping in the dark. A piece of him he hadn't realized still belonged to her. Finally let go. That night, he didn't just sleep beside me, he held me like I was home. Like he'd been away too long. And I believed him. Not because he said the right things, but because he finally understood how close he'd come to losing the life we built. Vanessa may have started this story, but I was going to finish it. On my terms. For a while, things were quiet. Beautifully, unnervingly quiet. Daniel kept his promise. The phone calls stopped. The late-night texting ended. He became more present, more like the man I married, and less like the ghost I'd been chasing for months. He made dinner without me asking, rubbed my back when I couldn't sleep, took photos of me when I wasn't looking, and called me beautiful like he was remembering how to mean it, and I breathed again. I stopped waking in the middle of the night in panic. I stopped checking his phone. I stopped needing proof. For the first time in too long, I felt like I was part of something whole again. Not perfect, but real. Reclaimed. But healing is strange. It doesn't move in straight lines. It loops, backtracks, lingers. It tests your belief that peace is real, that the ground beneath you will hold. One afternoon, I found a letter in the mailbox. No name, no return address. My name handwritten in blue ink I didn't recognize. I opened it on the kitchen counter with shaking hands. You're living in my leftovers. He loved me first. He'll love me last. No signature, just that. The paper smelled faintly of perfume. I stood there for a long time, holding it, unsure if I was more angry or afraid. I knew it was her. It had to be. No one else would be cruel in exactly that way. But why now? Why, after she'd been told to leave us alone? I didn't tell Daniel at first. I burned the letter in the sink, watched the flames eat her words. But that night, as he curled up beside me, I felt the weight of the secret pressing down on my ribs. So I told him. He sat up, fully alert, jaw tense. She sent you that? How? Why? I shook my head. I don't know. I haven't answered. I won't. He stood pacing. This is insane. It's harassment. I just want it to stop, I whispered. He nodded, grabbing his phone. I'm calling a lawyer. Or the police. I don't care. She crossed a line. But I touched his arm. Not yet. Let's not give her the satisfaction of knowing she rattled us. He stared at me, conflicted, then sat down again. I'm sorry. I thought we were past this. We are, I said. But she's not. We both knew she was watching us from somewhere, waiting for cracks to reappear. And I was determined to give her none. Over the next few weeks, I doubled down. On life, on love, on joy. I took a cooking class, laughed too loud in restaurants, danced barefoot in the kitchen to old songs we both forgot. I wore red lipstick again, slept in silk instead of cotton. Not for Daniel, for me. Vanessa had tried to shrink me, but instead she woke something up. Daniel noticed. You seem lighter, he said one morning, watching me sip coffee at the window. I smiled. I am. But peace has a price. Because the next letter came 2 weeks later. This time it wasn't just words, it was a photograph, emphasis, of me leaving the grocery store, taken from across the street. Blurry, but unmistakably me. The back said, he's not the only one who sees you. I dropped the photo on the table, heart pounding. She wasn't trying to win Daniel back. She was trying to undo me. And this time, I wasn't going to burn anything. I drove straight to the police station, photo in hand. They took it seriously, opened a report, asked if I wanted a restraining order. I hesitated, then nodded. That night, when Daniel saw the official papers, something shifted in him. She's not just desperate, he said. She's dangerous. And I finally let myself say what I'd been holding in. I'm scared. He pulled me close, kissed my forehead. You're not alone. We'll fight this together. But the truth was, Vanessa wasn't breaking us anymore. She was making us stronger. And I knew in that terrifying, beautiful moment that no matter what came next, I was ready. The restraining order had been filed, the papers delivered, the silence that followed almost too still to trust. For weeks, we heard nothing from Vanessa. No more letters, no more photos. No eerie, anonymous deliveries. I wanted to believe it was over, that a line had finally been drawn she wouldn't dare cross. But peace after chaos feels suspicious, like calm seas when you know there's a storm just over the horizon. Daniel tried to ease the tension. He booked a weekend away, a cozy cabin near the mountains, just the two of us. He cooked me breakfast every morning, left little notes in my book margins, and pulled me closer in sleep like he feared I'd vanish if he let go. And for a while, I let myself enjoy it. I let myself hope. But peace wasn't the ending of the story. It was the invitation for the final act. The knock came on a Thursday. Around 7:30 p.m., I was home alone. I almost didn't answer it. But I opened the door, and there she was. Vanessa. Not a letter, not a photo, her in person. She looked different, thinner, messier, a shadow of the woman I'd seen in old photos. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes wild and shiny. In her hand was a crumpled envelope. I stepped back instinctively, my hand tightening on the doorframe. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said quickly, voice too high, too fast. I wanted to explain. I thought you deserved that. My instinct was to slam the door, call the police, but I didn't. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was tired of running. Or maybe I needed to see face to face what had haunted my marriage for so long. So I said, you have 5 minutes. She stepped in, just like that. Vanessa walked into my home. She sat on the edge of the couch like she might dissolve if she leaned back. I know you think I'm crazy, she said, twisting the envelope in her hands. I probably am, but I loved him. I really did. I stayed standing, arms crossed. You tried to destroy him. No, she shook her head. I tried to destroy you because he chose you, and I couldn't stand it. He moved on and I didn't. I said nothing. I wrote those letters. I took the photo. She stopped, eyes wet. I thought if I scared you away, you'd leave and he'd come back. I finally spoke. He's not coming back. I know. She placed the envelope on the coffee table. This is the last one. No threats. No games. Just goodbye. And then she left. Just like that. I called the police, reported the visit. They updated the file, reminded me to stay alert. But the real change didn't come from that. It came from what I read inside the envelope that night. A single-page letter. Not angry, not threatening, just broken. I thought love meant never letting go, but maybe real love means knowing when to. That night, I cried. Not for her. For the version of myself that had been afraid for so long. For the woman who had doubted everything, who'd let herself be undone by someone else's chaos. Daniel came home late from work, found me with the letter in my lap. "Is it over?" he asked, eyes scanning mine. "I think it finally is," I whispered. We held each other. No words, just warmth. And weeks later, I hosted a dinner. Not for Vanessa. For the women in my life who had held me up. My sister, my closest friends, even my therapist. We ate, we drank, we laughed. And at the head of the table, I sat, not as the woman who had survived being targeted, but as the woman who chose not to crumble. I looked around the room and realized this was my real victory. Not in winning Daniel back, not in silence from Vanessa, but in becoming someone no one could undo again. So if you're reading this, and you've ever been the one someone tried to replace, ruin, or erase, know this. You are not fragile. You are not crazy. And the ones who try to break you, they're just afraid of the strength you haven't even fully claimed yet.